We are back, and we are joined now by Jessie Kelly, member of and chair of communications for UAW Local 160. Jessie works at General Motors in Warren, Michigan, where there was just a rally for workers held by the UAW and the leader, Shawn Fain. Jessie, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. So I just mentioned Shawn Fain, his leadership, and how, honestly, aggressive in a great way he's been. It's been a bit of a breath of fresh air, at least from my outside perspective. But I'm curious how you feel about the leadership, the way that UAW is approaching these contract negotiations, as opposed to the past, or as opposed to what you've observed with other unions?
I mean, there's a stark difference. First, I want to apologize. I lost my voice because of the rally yesterday.
Oh,
so good. I'm a little hoarse, but there is a huge stark difference between how this is being handled under this new administration compared to the last. I think it is extremely refreshing. I think my membership is thrilled about it. I think it's going very well. And there's a lot to be said about constantly being informed and how much that grows the solidarity.
Right. And so for people that may not be up on this, September 14th is the deadline for an agreement. If you could just catch people up on where the UAW is in their negotiations with the big three, Ford, GM, and Stellantis.
Sure. So our contracts all expire on the same day at September 14th at 11:59 p.m. We usually go into bargaining and we pick like a target. We start with that company, and then we try to get the best agreement from them and then pattern off of that. So this time is going to be a little bit different. We've decided that we are not going to pick a target. President Shawn Fain has been super honest and open about the fact that if you do not have an agreement that he's satisfied with and that the membership is going to be satisfied with on September 14th at 11:59 p.m., then the membership will go on strike, because he knows and we know that we're in a place inside of history where we deserve everything that we're asking for. We've had concessionary agreements after concessionary agreements, and it's time to end that. As he put yesterday at the rally, the race for the bottom ends on September 14th at 11:59 p.m. So we're in this fight. We're in bargaining. He's been also very open about the fact that he feels like the companies aren't taking bargaining as seriously as they should for where they're at right now. And we're just, quickly approaching the September deadline, and hopefully we all get a good contract. But if we do not, we're ready to strike if we need to.
Well, breaking news today, Stellantis, one of the big three, is threatening to move the production of the Ram 1500 to Mexico, to another country. Like, can you speak about how strategic that is from their end, as essentially a threat to get the union, which 150,000 workers are covered under these contracts that expire at midnight on September 14th. They're scared, so they're making threats in the press.
Yeah. I mean, as an American consumer, we should be disgusted that was even suggested. It was our tax dollars that have helped out all of these companies when they needed it the most. It was our sacrifices that saved them. It is just, like, honestly despicable to read something like that. As a consumer, we want to be as ethical as possible. We want to make sure that we're spending our money in the best way possible. So I know for me, like, I want to work for a company that is loyal to their people, not to their profits. And I want to spend my money with a company that's loyal to their people and not loyal to their profits. So I mean, that's all I can really say is, as ethical consumers, we should be outraged. And I hope people are. And I hope that they read that today. And I hope that they voice their concerns and they voice their frustrations for even the mere suggestion of that.
Well, I mean, the so central to the branding of these companies is that they're American made. I mean, and they want that to be the public face, especially in the wake of what you described, like, which is the bailout money that, workers took a haircut and they were affected. And now that the industry has recovered and the electric vehicle production is coming into play, and we can talk about that if you'd like in a second, they're making threats because they don't want to pay their workers.
Right. And it's not like they don't want to pay their workers and then they're going to make cars more affordable for everybody. That's not the case at all. So I work at General Motors. We build the Silverado here in Flint, and we also build it in Mexico. And if you, as a consumer, go to the lot right now and you buy a Silverado, those are the same exact prices. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
100%. I mean, let's talk about the electric vehicle production, right? And your observations about the electrification of the industry. How has that changed the relationship between the workforce and management, and how much does that play into what we're seeing in terms of these negotiations?
Well, I think we're seeing it a lot. I think that they're using it as a scapegoat to try to put more fear again inside of bargaining, to say that they can't afford what we're worth. And they're using the EV transition as a means of justifying that they're claiming broke. So that's where we're at with that. But we have a lot to win as a union as far as the transition goes, because we're going to be greatly impacted on just job losses first. You lose 40% of the components transitioning from an internal combustion engine to an EV, which means that we need less people to do the work because those components cease to exist. So we need to make sure that the people's jobs that are going to be impacted by this transition are safe. And we have to make sure that they are retrained and then put into jobs of equal or higher paying value than the ones that they left. What we've seen so far, which was my biggest fear about this transition, is that they've taken the jobs that are being created by EV and they're putting them in LLCs, or they're third-partying them out, or they're creating multi-tier agreements. And these workers are making $15, $16 an hour when we should be taking our workers whose jobs are going to be impacted and putting them into those jobs, like I said, for equal or higher paying wages. Is
that the joint venture that I read about, right?
Yeah.
Their efforts to get around the union and those contract talks by getting EV technology, like really learning it from overseas companies and not and trying to circumvent UAW contracts, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
And they get creative all the time. They get creative with their tiers, with their reclassifications, with their LLCs, with the companies that, they create. We've seen it with Lordstown, where, they just like built another site behind the one that they sold out. It's just, they get creative in ways to undercut us. And that's exactly what's happening in the transition into EV. So we are aware of that. We need to fight for that. And it's a big, big fight for us. So as far as the relationship between us and management, has it affected it? I don't know. I don't know really the answer to that. I think management is just as fearful about the transition into EV.
Right. I mean, but what they learned from Tesla, for example, is that, hey, we don't need to make these cars with union labor. We don't need to do that. And it seems like they're taking a page out of that book as a way to come after you guys in negotiations and
but that, sorry to butt in, but that should be a selling point. Like over Tesla is actually these ones are made by union labor. Right.
That would be a selling point for me, and I think for a lot of consumers, right? If they were really focused on that. But I mean, what's your sense? Is they're more worried about the precedent or giving you guys a foot in the door to make some more money? Because what I'm reading is that GM saw record earnings in 2021 and 2022. So there's definitely money on the table.
Yeah, a ton of it. So much. And when I say management, I just mean the management out on the floor, not like the higher up executives that, obviously reap the most benefits from the exploitation of the workers. But the management out on the floor is worried too, because if there's less of us, or if they do these spinoffs, you don't need them either.
are the central demands that you'd like to see get adopted, and what you're hearing from other members is the number one concern, or number 1, 2, 3 concern in the midst of these negotiations?
I think that everybody is in agreement that the number one concern is COLA, which is cost of living. We've seen just massive amounts of inflation happen since our last agreement. The last status I read was like inflation was 18%. Our last agreement only gave us a 6% gross wage increase over the lifetime, which means we all took a huge cut to our standard of living. That's extremely hard as even a traditional employee, but then you add on top of that, we have temps and tiers. So they are scraping to get by. 60% of our membership is living paycheck to paycheck, and they're never going to get ahead. And so I think COLA is absolutely the biggest thing that we need to capture in this next set of agreements. After that, it would be a pension and what we call in GM VIBA, but it is post-retirement health insurance.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And what do you say outside of, those cost of living issues and increases that radicalized people? What were some of the moments that led you all to making these demands and saying enough is enough with management and taking a strong approach under the leadership of Shawn Fain?
Well, I think we've just had nothing but concessionary agreements for about 30 years. And everybody's just fed up with it. They're fed up with it, and it's been hard. And, for me, I went on strike in 2019 for 40 days. And we went on strike for 40 days for a contract that ended up being a concessionary agreement. And that's, that really lit a few, a fuse under everyone, where it was like, we had to fight for that. We had to fight to still lose. So it's just really refreshing to see a whole new leadership come in, and that leadership say, we're with you in this fight. And we understand, that you're frustrated. We're frustrated too. We've been there. A lot of the brand new leaders on the executive board were on the floor 9 months ago. They were working next to us. They were facing the exact same battles we have been. So they know, right? There isn't like these years of kind of getting complacent and falling out of tune with the floor. They were on the floor with us. And so they're ready to fight too. And it's very exciting. And it's gotten everybody to a point where it's like, if our leadership is going to back us this much, we can actually win these fights.
What's that like to be able to, a lot of people watching this may not be in a union, to participate in an electoral process, a democratic process that is so connected to your material well-being?
Oh, I mean, to me, everybody should be in a union. I can't say it enough, right? We all deserve to have a voice at the place where we spend the vast majority of our lives. I know for auto workers, and I'm sure it's the same with all the working class, because really at the end of the day, if you get down to the nitty gritty, all of the working class has the same exact grievances and the same fight. So everybody should be part of a union. We spend our lives here, and you deserve to have a say in what that looks like for you.
Well, how can people support in this audience the UAW as they approach the master agreement deadline on September 14th?
I mean, the biggest thing that I would tell everybody right now is to just stand in solidarity. Even if you're not an auto worker, stand in solidarity with us. Understand our fight. Listen to us. Do not believe the company propaganda. It is insane, some of these headlines saying that auto workers make $60, $70 an hour. That is just completely not true. So just don't believe the propaganda. Do your research. Understand our fight. Listen to us when we talk about our fight. If it so happens that we have to go on a strike, we would love everybody to come and stand on a strike line with us. Donate to our pantry so that our members are able to stay out as long as possible. Those are the biggest things that I can say. And then after that, even after we win this fight, because we will win this fight, I'm positive we'll win this fight, be an ethical consumer. And please, put your money where it helps people and it grows the middle class. That's what's going to give our generation and every single generation after us more opportunity. And I just think it's incredibly important to make sure our next generations have opportunity too.
Well, really appreciate your time today, Jessie Kelly of the UAW Local 160. We will be following this, obviously, incredibly closely as these negotiations continue. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.